move on to addressing how Canada is trying to respond to certain of these challenges and measuring its progress regarding sustainability. Now, one very significant aspect um, of the challenges to sustainability and circular economy in Canada relates to the size of the country, its population density, the location of its economic drivers, as well as its international trade practices. That is, the supply chain and its role in the circular economy is an area for much discussion and consideration. Finally, Canada is a world leader in many areas of healthcare. However, many of the challenges which will be discussed regarding the circular economy are also challenges in terms of access and equity of the healthcare system in Canada. Now, to understand Canada, you have to understand that equity, particularly given the numerous northern, rural, remote communities in Canada, the relatively few numbers of very large city centers of healthcare excellence in Canadian cities, but also, in particular, working in respect of and to try to ameliorate Canada's dark history, dark colonial history in terms of Indigenous peoples. Engaging and collaborating with Indigenous populations and communities is at the core of almost any policy in Canada, and is particularly so with respect to healthcare. We're then going to move on for the panel for a question and answer session. So I'm going to summarize here what I think the end of all of this is going to be, which is that what we believe is a necessity of any circular economy initiative in Canada is that the initiatives represent Canadian solutions. So as we speak, I would encourage the audience to consider what types of Canadian-specific initiatives might improve the country's sustainability record by addressing Canadian-specific challenges. We can't force things on people when the best case is we tailor things towards countries, towards economies to try to best achieve circular the CE. So moving on. Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Fox. The slides are not visible.
Pardon me?
Yeah, now they are visible. Now they are visible.
We were not able to view the slides.
Yeah.
They were not able to view the slides. Now it's visible.
Yeah, is it visible now? Yeah.
The slides are visible.
Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, okay. All right. Sure. Let me just try to fix this a little bit. Okay.
David, it's your slides. That's not visible to them.
They can't. They can't.
It was not. No, they can see. They can see. They can see now.
Okay. Okay. So. Okay. So, starting out here, Canada is an enthusiastic participant in numerous international environmental and sustainability initiatives at the federal, provincial, territorial, and even municipal levels. Different parts of the Canadian government and industries have voluntarily implemented, are in the process of implementing or strengthening policies and strategies to continually reduce the country's environmental footprint. The current Liberal government has pursued a very pro-sustainability strategy domestically and internationally with varied results. and Dr. Carr is going to get into several of the initiatives that Canada has embraced in terms of sustainability and the CE. But it's important to understand that the term circular economy, it's a newish term in Canada. It's interpreted differently based on the sector and the context. So for this reason, there was a seminal report in 2021 by the Council of Canadian Academies entitled Turning Point. And the expert panel in that report tried to settle on a description of a circular economy that was more broadly applicable. Fundamentally, the expert panel of the Council of Canadian Academies emphasized that the circular economy is not the end goal, but a journey that incorporated concrete steps and key targets. This interpretation is intended to underscore the evolving nature of sustainability in the circular economy across industries and geography, and as the economy grows and shifts. It also reflects, in my opinion, and in the Canadian context, that concrete steps and key targets are more realistic for certain industries, and they will gain increased engagement. So you see before you what the expert panel of the Council of Canadian Academies settled on in terms of a definition of circular economy. I'm not going to reread that for you, but that's the basis that we're going to be operating on in this presentation. It's important to know as well that what the expert panel found in the Turning Point report, Canadians, generally speaking, actually are very supportive of environmental policies. But there's a lack of understanding, there's a lack of information, there's a lack of awareness of the concept of circular economy. We talk about sustainability, we talk about recycling, we talk about green initiatives, we talk about sustainable development goals, SDGs. But a big part of this is going to be in Canada, education, public knowledge of what circular economy means and what does it mean to people in their daily lives and to businesses. Now, to better understand what the circular economy and sustainable development can mean, it's important to better understand some basic facts and unique attributes of Canada. Its economy, its people, its international relations, and its system of government. Doing so is instructive in terms of both evidencing the advantages but also the challenges which Canada, sometimes alone presently, faces in pursuit of a corporate social responsibility, sustainability, recycling, reducing pollution and carbon footprints and waste, and the circular economy. So consider some of the following facts about Canada. First of all, when we think about circular economy, if pictures are worth 1,000 words, I'm going to just take you through. This is a snapshot of the Canadian economy. We have a lot of high tech and aerospace. In terms of natural resources, we are very, very wealthy from a natural resources perspective. Fish, oil, forestry, mining, the supply chain, farming, oil pipelines and steel, auto manufacturing generally, healthcare. And as I said before, in any discussion in Canada, that has to involve, and this is Canada, just Canada, it has to involve consideration of the Indigenous peoples and battling colonialism. So let's take a look here very quickly. We have an immense land area in Canada. We have very low population density. That impacts, it impacts very regionally. Okay, we have a lot of northern, rural, and remote communities. The distance between cities and communities is significant. You just don't drive from one city to the next. In Canada, you go to a city, then you drive 2-3 hours, then you get to another one. Then you, we have, as I said, significant natural resources, manufacturing, agricultural sectors. Now, what is important there is the importance of it to the economy, which I'm going to evidence in a few slides. But there are jobs, high-paying jobs in natural resources and manufacturing and agriculture in Canada. And so any attempt to implement a circular economy is going to involve spending of considerable resources. And there's always going to be a question about, well, what about the jobs? Is there going to be a return on investment? How do we measure the return on investment? The clean energy technologies, ironically, clean energy technologies, they rely heavily on natural resources and minerals that are mined in Canada. So as the demand for more smart devices, but also electric car batteries, other clean energy, as the demand increases for that, so does the amount of mining that is occurring in Canada. The other thing is that from an economic perspective, SMEs, small and mid-sized enterprises, predominate. We're a country of relatively small to mid-sized communities. Our businesses in Canada tend to be small, mid-sized. Of course, we have some very large businesses. We have internationally renowned stock exchange in terms of mining in particular, but these are all things that we have to keep in mind when we're talking about the circular economy. So what does this really mean? Well, here is Canada. Canada is the second largest country in terms of land area in the world, but it only has a population of 42 million people. Okay? Population density in this country is 9.6 individuals per square mile. So if you look at this country, and then you look at the side, the cities and populations, for people in many parts of the world, the idea that our largest city, and this is the metropolitan area of Toronto, which would be the financial capital of the country, the metropolitan area is 6.2 million. That is as big as it gets. And then it drops next to 4.3 million, and then it goes down from there. So we're a huge country. We have low population density. We have great distances to cover between communities, and our friend Rumi is going to talk some more about that. 10 provinces, 3 territories. The territories are up in the northern part here, the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. Now, I talked about population density, the 9.6 people per square mile. This is what Canada looks like in terms of population density. Again, enormous country, but everybody is, the vast majority of people are along a line that the border of the United States. Okay, so the dark colors here, those are communities of more than 200,000, sorry. So if you look for the dark red colors, we see some here, here, and then in southwestern Ontario, which is one of the most heavily populated areas. But you see a lot of smaller communities that are not dark red. I say that we are a large country. We have a low population density. That the majority of Canada is forest and tundra. This is what I mean right here. Anything green here, like there are different types of forest. This is a certain type of forest. Green, that's forest in Canada. White, that's tundra. So tundra is it's not completely barren, but it has small types of trees and bushes, a lot of rocks. There's not a lot of things that grow there. And we have an enormous forestry. Now, that's not to say that people don't live in these forested areas and in the tundra. They do, but as we saw on our last slide, that forestry area is coming down through here, and our population base is down here. Now, I say that we're a country of minerals, natural gas, natural resources. Just to give you, again, a picture, take a look at this map. All these dots, and in many cases, there are dots on top of dots. These represent mineral exploration, mines, metallurgical works, derricks and oil and gas exploration, what we call the oil sands in Canada. So from coast to coast, and actually even what's happening now up in the far north with diamond mines, we are, it cannot be overstated how important mining, oil and gas, forestry, natural resources are to Canada. We have the second largest oil reserves in the world. Okay. Next. Oh. Now, hydroelectricity. Fast running water. We have a lot of lakes and rivers that are fast running water. So we dam those up, D-A-M-N, dam them up to create hydroelectricity. And here's an example of a map in terms of the numerous hydroelectric sites and generating stations throughout Canada. Now we also are an agricultural country, and it is incredibly important. So you see out west here, we have crops, and then there's also rangelands. We have a lot of cattle, various animals that are out on ranges feeding, wheat. Basically, you name it, we grow it in Canada. So this part out here, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, parts of Alberta, heavy agriculture, and then right down here in southwestern Ontario, up along the St. Lawrence River in Quebec, again, very heavy agriculture. So what I want you to think about when we talk about those things is what impact that has on how we achieve a circular economy in Canada. The mineral resources, the coal resources, the oil and gas development, the mining that occurs, the amount of farmland, the farming, the agriculture, the hydroelectricity, dams, like the distances between cities, the population density, how all of that impacts and frankly presents real challenges to achieving a circular economy. So some more facts. I said before, in Canada, it is just the reality that virtually anything we do on a large scale, it needs to incorporate consideration and consultation of the Indigenous peoples of Canada. And that's in respect of our trying to redress the colonial history and some very dark history in terms of the Indigenous people and white European settlers. We have a very high consumption rate of materials, energy, and water. Why? Because we have a lot of materials, energy, and water. Okay. We have a circularity rate of 6.1%. That is the first time, that's 2021, that's the first time that was even calculated in Canada. So 94% of what we consume is extracted or made, not recycled. 6.1%. So that's a pretty tough figure. We are also a big exporter of waste, and in particular plastics, and Dr. Carr is going to talk a little bit about that. We have a lot of waste. No one wants to put the waste anywhere in Canada, understandably. So we export it. The City of Toronto, all day, every day, the City of Toronto, again, metropolitan, 6.2 million, all day, every day, starting at 5 in the morning and going right through till late at night. There are just constant trucks going back and forth, 3-4 hours up and down the major Trans-Canada Highway, taking our trash.
Mr. David,
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Because we are having a limited time, especially for the panel discussion.
All right.
Okay.
I'll finish off quickly here.
Okay. Thank you.
We're an exporter of waste. The other part, we lack measurement metrics for the circular economy. Our relationship with and dependence on the United States is always an issue, and there is a complexity with the governmental with the governmental jurisdictions. Here, just as an example, is the various Indigenous communities throughout Canada. So I'm going to move on here. These are some statistics that illustrate the contribution to Canadian GDP of forestry, of natural resources, of fishing, of mining. It also, what is important here is to understand that any action that we take with respect to natural resources, and if it has a negative impact on natural resources, it will impact one part of the country more than others. Okay, so if you take fishing, you're going to hit these provinces. If you take oil, Alberta, look at that. Alberta produces that amount of gas from Canada. So we have to look at that. Because of the northern rural remote landscape in Canada, there are deficits in infrastructure. It is a low cost to dispose of waste. So there are economic disincentives for waste reduction. There's an uncertain return on investment for investment in the circular economy. We need more comprehensive data. A circular economy will impact our international trade in unclear fashions. I mean, fundamentally, collaboration is required, and even our government is not really strong in terms of incorporating sustainability into its procurement, which represents 13.3% of the national GDP. So what I would say, moving on, is I don't think it's all doom and gloom. It isn't all doom and gloom. It's a matter of fitting what we are already doing and understanding how it integrates sustainability, recycling, green initiatives, how that integrates with the circular economy. And the realities of what Canada is and what drives its economy have to be part of that circular economy discussion. Geopolitical considerations can't be minimized. We need to learn from our allies, and we have to also bear in mind the size of business in Canada. Small, mid-sized enterprises are not going to be able to take on the enormous costs that may be part of joining the circular economy. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Kamaljeet Kaur to talk about sustainable development.
Thanks a lot, David, for discussing and sharing the facts regarding sustainability and circular economy here in Canada. Since David talked a lot about how Canada is rich in mineral resources and how, Canadian government is putting a lot of efforts in making SDG goals here in Canada. So I will be just focusing more about comparing Canada with the G7 nations. Now, talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, let me take you a little bit back. So in 2023, there was a meeting which was held up in World Economic Forum, and they reached out to new guidelines where they focused on the Sustainable Development Goals and how we are going to build momentum in the world. And based on that, WEF, laid down 4 different areas, and each underscored by the challenge of responding to the climate goals. Like, for example, how we are going to increase the climate action, how we are going to accelerate the industry transformation, how we are going to shape the resilient economies and societies, and how we are going to advance the regional and the global cooperation. And based on these 4 goals, different nations and different countries in and across the world, they agreed to handle the sustainability all in their own respective countries. Like, I can give you an example, Ecuador, a Latin American country, they became the, first country in Latin America to join the Global Plastic Action Partnership. And according to them, they were bringing about 25 key technologies back there in Ecuador to control the climate, rapidly changing climate, and to bring it more of the sustainable development. Apart from this, if I'm going to talk about, there were different organizations who were working very hard, and Canada is working very hard to bring in this concept of the SDG and the circular economy. We in Canada, we are very, very, very particular about the climate change. We have so many initiatives coming up. There were universities, there were different, programs that have been launched back forth in Canada, and the Canadian government is very much adamant to get the climate aspect related very closely with the sustainability and the circular economy. So what are the initiatives and the progresses Canada has done in comparison with the G7 members. Now, Canada, as I discussed, that they had, the Canadian government, they are making a significant growth towards integrating the sustainability and the circular economies. So we have a lot of national policies, we have a lot of initiatives that have been started, and it includes reducing waste, reusing resources, how we are going to talk more about the pollution and biodiversity loss. So it's a huge concern. Pollution and the biodiversity loss is a huge concern. There is a lot of green space here in Canada, and the government is very particular. They don't allow to do any sort of activity to reduce that green space. Now, what are the Canada initiatives? The first one is the Canada started out with the zero waste, strategy. So if we go here in many grocery stores here in Canada, they have stopped using plastic bags. It's completely banned. So they're focused on the product design, recycling capacity, and public awareness. Canada also, just brought it a Canada-wide action plan, on handling the waste strategy. So they aim on reducing the plastic pollution and increasing the recycling rates. So many, stores like the Tim Hortons here in Canada, or McDonald's here in Canada, they are focusing on reusable or recyclable cups. IKEA, one of the largest furniture store here in Canada, they are working very hard on the recycling furnitures. Canada's greening government strategy, they seek to make government operations low carbon and resilient by incorporating the circular economy principles. Like, I can give you an example, like in Quebec, one of the province, and British Columbia, one of two provinces here in Canada, they are leading the way in Canada with the active circular economy strategies. Like many other provinces are following, but Quebec and British Columbia, these two provinces are leading the way, and they have started a program here in Canada in their provinces, which is known as Extended Producer Responsibility, that is a EPR, wherein they hold the manufacturers accountable for the life cycle of the products. Somebody has to take the accountability, and they're holding the manufacturers accountable for that. And even the local provincial governments or municipalities, they're also developing in these two provinces zero waste and circular economy plan. So there is a one thing which is very popular here in Quebec, which is going on. They call it Recycle Quebec. So they wanted to have a zero waste here in Canada. Now, if I compare to G7 nations, I'm not saying that Canada is doing a huge thing or they are taking more initiatives. We are trying our level best to make as compared to our G7 nation, we really wanted it, but then still Canada needs to do a lot, right? And we signed an initiative which is known as Ocean Plastics Charter and the Global Alliance on Circular Economy with G7 nations. But still, if we compare Canada with Germany and Japan, they are, not they have still need to make some time to reach up to that. Like Germany and Japan, they have got the higher circularity rate. They have more robust frameworks for the circular economy as compared to the Canadian counterparts. But yes, we are doing more better than the other countries. We are on the third number, if we say that, among the G7 nations to work towards the circular economy. Now, if I talk about how Canada is taking this thing as compared to the G7 nations, number one, the Canada is talking about the sustainability initiatives and performance. We have created a component which is known as, carbon. We started out with the carbon pricing. We started out with very strict regulations. We started out with a lot of incentives to the organizations if they are managing their sustainable, managing the waste or recycling the waste. And Canada has got a very strong now high taxes. So the taxes have been increased on the manufacturing units, who are not following the climate action plan. So increased regulation, and the government is spending very high amount of money in Canada, but not as more comparison to the um, G7 nations, right? We had, according to the recent survey done by the OECD Economic Survey in 2023, Canada has made strides in certain areas of sustainability, but still we need to maintain the consistent economic growth. We need to make the productivity. Yes, comparison. If we compare, it's doing good. But if we see countries like Estonia, which is not the part of the G7, if you see the countries like Ireland, which is not the part of the G7, they are working very hard to bring in the strong initiatives to build the sustainable development goals. And Canada has to improve a lot on the economic policies, but still we are happy. We know what David talked about, tons and tons of the waste, and we are very particular here in Canada regarding we have a separate bins, and Rumi will be talking further about that. And we have different, regions here in Canada, like Peel region or Halton regions at different places here. They work very strongly, and there were heavy fines imposed on the citizens here in Canada who are not following this sustainable development goals. So I will now give this baton to Rumi Tunani, my another colleague, and Rumi will be talking further more about the supply chain and the circular economy, and then he'll be talking more about the examples of how Canada, when I talked about the G7 nations and comparison and how Canada is working toward the sustainable development goals, Rumi is going to make my point more strong on how Canada is working towards this supply chain. Thank you very much. And Rumi, on to you.
Thank you, Kamaljeet. So let's start off, and David, could you? Yeah, thank you. So now, as we've seen that Canada is a vast country, and that makes it difficult to compare it, to make policies to implement it, and the way it is set up, it's got multiple provinces and territories, and these have got some level of independence. So that's the first challenge, where you have regulations, you have policies, but it's inconsistent. You may have certain policies which have stronger regulations, and then you have other provinces which do not have that. So that makes it a bit of challenging. So what we're trying to look at is all the challenges that we face. The second is, of course, vast terrain. David's talked about it. Dr. Kamaljeet has talked about it. So because of the scale, and not only being big, but it's wide, it's got 5 time zones. So just going from one side to the other itself is a carbon, activity that will happen. And then we've got high costs because we've got, first of all, the terrain. Then whenever we make any kind of transition, whenever we switch from an electric car from a gas car to an electric car, there is a cost involved. Similarly, in the industries, whenever they try to move to something carbon neutral, or that's the heavy cost that's involved. So these are some of the challenges that are there in the Canadian side for the supply chain. Next slide, please, David. So now let's look at some companies that were out there, which did a very good job. And I'm just going to talk about 2 small examples. First is Maple Leafs Food, and the other one is Teck Resources. So what they did was they just became the pioneer, and Maple Leaf is the best example. It has set a very high standard, becoming the first carbon neutral food company, and this is globally. And it achieved this in 2019. So you have companies trying to achieve it, but Maple Leafs just went, just hit the ball out of the park and went all wide, and they were able to achieve this. And what they did was they actually set goals. So that's an important part of this entire process. How do we achieve that? First is setting these goals and making commitments, improving their energy efficiencies. And how they did that was they changed their lighting and taking smaller steps, which helped them achieve this. As it's a food processing plant, what happens is it has a lot of water which is wasted. So it started recycling this water and reducing the water in the first place. And then another thing that they tried to do was they used sustainable sourcing of the product. So wherever they were buying these products, they ensured that everything was in order and done environment friendly ways. Finally, and this is the biggest point, this is where you get a lot of input. What they did was they actually got employee and stakeholder engagement. Now, what this does is this helps you get ideas, and throughout the world, the best people that can give you suggestions to improvements are the stakeholders, because these are the people that's are actively involved, and they made strong use of that. With that, what happened was they got in, took in all these initiatives, made improvements, and became the first carbon neutral food company in the world. Next slide, please. The next one is mining. Now, I know David has talked a lot about mining, and yes, mining does have its challenges, especially in this field. But what it did, now, tech is not a global leader in any ways, but it is definitely one of the leaders in Canada. And the way to achieve that was it used sustainable mining practices, again, using clear sustainable goals, water management, reclamation, reducing greenhouse. And let me talk about what it did was it tried to reduce the GHG emissions across all its operations. And what it aligned itself with the Paris Agreement goals to to make it more sustainable. Again, energy, it reduced the energy effective lightingness. It increased the
Okay, sorry to interrupt you actually, because the thing is, because we are having a very limited time is here, especially
sure,
for
sure,
us.
sure, sure.
Okay, so it's kindly to wind up within 1 or 2 minutes, please.
Okay, so what I'll do is the last, David, could you please go to the last one, last slide? And this is just an example of that. This is the last one that I'm talking about, and this is done at a regional level. Again, this is a big part in the circular economy level, where they split up the garbage. And what they did was the third garbage, which was an organics bin. This is where all our food waste goes in. And this is a big implementation because we've got all this organic material, and all this organic material right now. Now, again, Peel is not the leader, but definitely strongly enforces it. And as Dr. Kamaljeet Kaur has mentioned, this is a very good case study that a lot of people can reuse to make sure that they are taking part and contributing to the circular economy. So I'll pause here. I'll end here. Thank you so much. I'm not going to talk about this, so I'll give it over to David.
Yeah, so I'm just going to pass it on to Dr. Tademi.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I know we're a little bit, time crunched right now. But again, I'm honored to be here to discuss the importance of, sustainability in healthcare, and I'm going to be pretty brief with this. We are facing global health challenges that require us to rethink, our approach to healthcare. And like Dr. Kamalji talked about the Sustainable Development Goals from United Nations. This provide a roadmap for addressing the challenges. And Canada in particular has shown a very strong commitment to environmental stewardship. So I would start with the importance of sustainability in healthcare. It contributes significantly to the environment impact. When we have sustainable practices in healthcare, this would lead to some form of improved public health outcomes, and the part which most of us like to hear, which is reduced operational costs. COVID-19 came and the pandemic hit the whole world. It was a global health challenge, and WHO came up with all sorts of solutions and all sorts of limitations also to ensure that we were able to manage this and have a sustainable economy. And that pushed and motivated the need for a resilient and sustainable healthcare system, which we're driving at today in Canada. And the United Nations Sustainable Goal, the goal that actually is directly related with my topic is the goal number 3, which talks about good health and well-being, and also goal 13, which talks about climate action. So what this is pushing at is emphasizing the need for a sustainable and resilient health system. So next is the big question, that what is Canada's commitment to environmental stewardship, right? In Canada, we have all sorts of policy. Our health, environment, and health economy plan aims to achieve net zero emission by 2050. And this comes with specific strategies for healthcare sustainability. So the government is really pushing to ensure that we, meet these goals. One of Canada's commitment is also reducing healthcare facility emissions, right? How do we do this? We are implementing energy efficient technologies in our hospitals, in our clinics. One of them is an example of LED lighting, providing energy efficient HVAC systems, and also making sure that we're having smart building technologies. We're also looking for how we can retrofit existing healthcare facilities in a bid to improve energy efficiency and also reduce emissions to the barest minimum. Now, when it comes to waste reduction and management, we promote recycle, like our Rumi talked about previously. We're promoting recycling, we're promoting proper waste segregation, most especially within the healthcare facilities. And why are we doing this? We want to be able to minimize the waste being sent to our landfills. We want to try to implement programs for the safe disposal and recycling of medical and hazardous waste. Let's not forget about water conservation also. What are we doing in this case? We are installing all sorts of water efficient fixtures and systems in the healthcare facilities. We are implementing water recycling and also looking for how we can harvest rainwater to be able to reduce water consumption. Next point is on green transportation. I think Dr. Kamalji talked about that. We're encouraging the use of hybrid vehicles for medical transport. We do a lot of medical transporting in Canada, not only medical transporting and staff commuting to work every day. We're looking for how we can encourage the use of electric hybrid vehicles, and also additionally on top of that, provide infrastructure for bike commuting, and maybe making sure that the public transportation have access to these healthcare facilities on a greener platform. And also very important is education and training. We need to provide training and resources for healthcare professionals. This is very important to be able to sustain a very good practice and environmental stewardship. I have some little, my next topic which I'll be talking about right now is some case studies which I just want to talk about. And one of the case studies is actually very important in the sense that this is how we can learn, on what is going on and how we can actually, solve those problems. Now, the case study I'm talking about today is the Ottawa's Hospital Comprehensive Sustainability Strategy. Now, the hospital, we have the Ottawa Hospital, which is a very big hospital here that has adopted a form of holistic approach to sustainability. How? First of them is energy conservation, my bad. The hospital installed what is called a cogeneration plant. Now, this plant produces both electricity and heat, and improves the energy efficiency and reduces the green gas emission by at least 25%. This should be a role model to other hospitals in this case. When it comes to waste management, how has Ottawa Hospital been able to do the needful? They implemented what is called a hospital-wide recycling and composting program. And when they did this, they were able to reduce the landfill waste by another 50% in 3 years, which is a very huge significance and growth. And the last that they did was, in terms of green building practices, They have a new civic campus that they built somewhere to be able to incorporate green roofs, rainwater harvesting, and all sorts of energy efficient systems in this case. Now, the next question is, what are the results of all this? Ottawa Hospital has done well by pushing all this. The initiatives that they have positioned as a leader in sustainable healthcare has been able to serve as a model for other institutions and hospitals in Canada and around the world. So what's the key takeaway of this? Now, while we have challenges in supply chain, sustainability, utilities optimization, integration of sustainable practices, the Canadian healthcare institutions are making progress. We cannot deny this. And how are we doing this? We're doing this through innovative strategies, dedicated efforts, and these institutions are demonstrating what it is to be called a sustainable healthcare that is beneficial for the environment and the public. And I'm closing right now. I'm talking about collaboration and accountability. What is the role of the government in terms of policies and regulation? One example of successful collaboration is the partnerships between hospitals and renewable energy sector. This has helped a lot. And the impact that this brings is that the collaboration would reduce the hospital's carbon footprint and serve as a model for other institutions. I know because of time I can go ahead, but I would conclude by saying the key takeaways and also mention the call to action right here. This is not about one person. I'm encouraging all stakeholders to prioritize sustainability and in a way that it will benefit the patient's healthcare and also operational efficiency. And I think because of time, I just want to thank you all for your attention and your ongoing commitment to a healthier and more sustainable future. And I want to charge you all to let's continue working together to build a greener, more resilient healthcare system for the future generations. Thank you, everyone.
Really very thanks for you for giving your precious words actually. And it is really very thanks to all of you that you're just trying to collaborating with the circulation of the sustainability, what are the features that is just going on, and how the things which are going on in the upgradation, especially for the Canadian actually. So I just open this particular the questionnaires which are existing. So I just ask from the audience side. If any questions from the audience side, please raise your hands. So I just open that particular the mic and please. Any questions from the audience? Okay, so no issue. So 2-3 questions are from my side actually. Because in the last last 1 hour, I think we are discussing a lot, especially for sustainability. In fact, I'm basically in India actually, and I'm just working a lot with the healthcare sector. Okay, with the AIMS and GBPUN from the last 7 years. Okay, and I'm just working especially for the government bodies for in order to implicating for the green the things which are existing for and to implicating for especially for the SDG goals which are existing in our project actually. Okay, but my question is. What are the key parameters, or we can say what are the steps that you try to implicating in your policies actually? And my second query is especially for David. Please tell me because while we are just applying for what the strategy that you have applied for the Canada actually, it is. I think it will be a long-term process actually for the 5 years or 6 years. If I'm just saying, if we can try to implicate in a short duration, so according to you, you can suggest me what are the time durations that we should try to implicate it for aligning for the sustainability of that particular the things which will need to be aligned. Yeah.
I think so. Both the questions, Dr. Kamal.
Yeah.
David started out with the facts and challenges. So, David, I think so. You will be able to answer it better.
Yes. Dr. Kamal. So, can I just clarify? What you're asking is what alignment needs to happen in terms of the economy and particularly in a natural resources rich.
Yes.
What needs to be the first thing I think, and the most important thing, is that in Canada we have under our constitution very different responsibilities for different areas, all of which tie into the green economy and sustainability. So we talked about indigenous peoples. That's a federal. Waterways. That's going to be federal. But there are others that are provincial. So I think what needs to happen. And Quebec has taken its own path in this by just going ahead and doing it. And I just with respect, that's how Quebec kind of manages things. I think what needs to be aligned is on a pan-Canadian basis, and that is difficult. What is enough? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, these are 3 things we can all work on, whether you're oil and gas, whether you're wheat, whether you're hydroelectricity, what are the 3 concrete things that we are going to do that we agree on, and how are we talking about this? Like, how are we describing it? How are we measuring it? Are we using the EU basis to measure it? What is our definition of circular economy? Again, we didn't really have one until 2021. So exactly what are the concrete steps? It is a journey. In any mineral-rich country, it's a journey. It is not we're going to get there now. It's a journey. So agreement on 2, 3 common goals, what it means to establish them, what it means to achieve them, and how we're going to measure it, and who's responsible for what, federal, provincial, municipal. That, in my mind, is what's got to happen.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks
Dr.
for giving your response. Yeah. Thank you. For next question from the audience side, please. Any questions from the audience? Any questions from the audience, please? Better kindly unmute your mic, please. Unmute your mic. Yeah. Yes.
I want to ask them what are the
No. Your voice is not audible. Voice is not audible, I think. It is.
Kamal sir, could you?
Yeah, ma'am, it is audible. Yeah, please.
I want to ask that what are the core principles?
Ma'am, it is just the voice is a little bit echoing, ma'am. This is the reason why.
Sir, he wants to know what are the core principles of the circular economy.
Ma'am, sorry if anyone who can write the question in a basically in message box, that will be more better. I think so.
I think the question was the core principles of the circular economy, I think.
Okay.
And I would just go back to where we were before. I'm sorry to fly through these slides, but so I think we look at this definition and we parse it systemic. It's a systemic. It's not me, you, them. And then what are our boundaries? And how do we conserve materials? How do we not just continually consume materials? How
Dr.
do we
David, sorry, the student is having the problem is they're asking, what are the core principles of curricular economy actually? I mean, the students has just written on a WhatsApp in a message actually.
What are the
core principles? What
core
are the
principles?
core principles? Yeah.
The core principles, I would say, is moving from a linear extract, use, dispose to a circular and a circular model where stuff coming into the economy is the waste as much as possible. Any waste generated is there a possible? Yeah, recycled, and we think about waste in a different way too. So we recycle, but anything that we would otherwise think of as waste, is there a way that that can be used again and continue in the circular, as opposed to extract, use, throw out?
Right. I
Okay.
agree with David. I just need to add up this thing. So what exactly the three principles on which the circular economy work is: number one is how we are going to eliminate the waste and the pollution. Pollution plays a very important role in that. And second component, second principle on which they work is how you are going to circulate the products. You need to circulate the products, you need to circulate the materials, and it's very important when we are circulating it, how we are going up with the highest value. And the third important thing is how we are going to regenerate the nature which we have destroyed. So it's very important. So these are the three core principles. Am I right, David? This is what exactly in the line of what you were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so due to the lack of time, I'm just asking the last question for wrapping up for the all 2-3 questions and clubbing and to make a one question actually. From the audience side, they are just asking, can you tell me what are the real applications which are existing, especially for circular economy? Along with that, I just want to have one small questions. Okay. So the thing is, David, especially to you, this question. The thing is, because in your slide it is mentioned that is in collaboration. Okay. And we are staying in India actually, and you are in the Canada actually. Okay. So we all are working on SDG goals. Okay. So all are having us common basic goals are existing. So I can say, because if you can see from the last 3 years or 5 years, there are a lot of research proposals. They are just moving it out either from the US, India, either from UK to India, either from we can say India to Saudi, but it either from India to Europe. But I just want to ask you, still from the last 5 years, because I'm just working a lot in the research projects actually, but no project has to be released till now. Or I can say I don't know, because no project has to be released till now for the joint collaboration between the India and Canada, especially for working for sustainability, or we can say for the SDG goals. So can you comment, or you can give your suggestions that how the universities or institutions or colleges, they should be work together in order to exchange their thought and knowledge from one country to another country in order to improvisation for its the things especially for our environment. Over to David.
I think you're on mute, David.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. Without going into tremendous details, and Dr. Kaur, probably not to just throw it at her, but in terms of specific initiatives, she with India, I think she would be better positioned to answer that question. Having said that, you're absolutely right in terms of what needs to happen in terms of collaboration. I mean, the post-secondary systems are central to research and development, to trying to continually develop technologies or develop paths that continually lower cost. And in Canada, particularly when we're dealing with mining, where we're dealing with natural resources, developing approaches where there's going to be waste. There is no question when you mine, there's going to be waste. But what can we take from that waste and use? And I think the one of the biggest things the research institutes need to focus on is we all want this clean energy. We're just putting a whole bunch of money into battery factories, electric battery factories here in Canada, and the greening of technology. But the problem with that is the more you want green technology, the more we have to mine the stuff that goes into the green technology, and that's not coming back. Once we take it out, it's out. and the recycling rate with respect to green technology is not tremendous at this point. So we need to figure out how to better recycle it, how to better use waste from what we're doing, and we need to research the approaches and how we can bring down the costs. Again, recognizing the small, mid-sized enterprise predominance in Canada. As for India specific, Canada, India specific, I will pass it over to Dr. Kaur.
Thank you, David. Regarding the India specific, I think so Dr. Kamalu Preti will be the better here. But the thing is that what Rumi discussed about in his examples, talking about the Maple Foods and the tech industries in Peel region, and Dami talked about Ottawa Hospital. What's important is that, Dr. Kamal, I just left India almost 5 years back, and what I'm observing that what we need to understand is that it's not about sitting in a closed room, whether we are in Canada or whether we are in India, to discuss about this. There should be a groundwork which needs to be done. More of students or maybe from the schools. It should be started out discussing about this SDG, discussing about this circular economy. Let this, make it a part of the curriculum, which we are observing here in Canada in the schools. The children, the kids, they have started learning more about this, how to handle this waste, how to handle this thing. And the government here is focusing more on, building up a strong base of this, what we are talking about, because that's a big thing. What we are observing right now in and around the world is thanks to not following these rules and regulations built up by the nature. And I agree with you. We need to really work very strong.
In fact, in India, there are a lot of changes and variation has to be done in our policies as well.
Yes.
If you can see that we are with the NEP policies just coming it out 2020 actually, and we are just more focusing from the vocational courses and the skill set which is going on actually. And if I can see the stats from the Forbes magazine, I can say India is the world largest manpower generating providing for the resources and across the globe. Yeah. So we can say yes, but my question is, I'm not be able to satisfy it. Sorry to say, David, because because my question is little bit is how we can do the collaboration actually. Because the thing is, I'm just worried because in the 5 years back I was in Europe actually for 3 years. In 2 years I was in Japan actually. So I worked with a lot of collaborated projects. But the question is, there is a less of collaborated work or the project which is going on, which is we can say country, or I can say the India and Canada. But secondly, I just want to say there is a lack of schemes which is coming it out.
Yes.
This is my especially the question.
Right. Debbie,
okay.
You have to
So,
say
Dr. Kamal, I understand your question, and I have some suggestions because when I realized we were going to be speaking here, I did little research on India, and I've always had a calling. I've had attractions to India. I have a lot of friends and all that. So, based on and to corroborate what Dr. Kamaljeet Kaur has said, now one of the ways that I think partnerships and collaborations could work for India is that you target the international organizations. They would help in a way. Also target NGOs. When I mean NGOs, I mean NGOs that actually support sustainability and green renewable energy. Also, you might want to look into private sector. I don't know how the government policies are in India, but again, you might want to look into the private sector to gain access to funding, technology, and expertise in this case. For government policies, I know sometimes it might not be that flexible, but you want to start advocating for supportive government policies, okay? Such as subsidies for that renewable energy in this case, and installations in healthcare. I'm a healthcare person, not only healthcare, but in all sectors. Then last but not the least is start with pilot programs. The more pilot programs that you put in place, okay, the more access you have to be able to demonstrate the benefits of sustainability. Seeing is believing. When people start seeing this, then they know, oh, we're not supposed to throw the waste here. We can actually make this out of waste in this case. So that's what I feel for a country like India that has a very large population also, which I think might be a problem or issue. But I think with this points which I have mentioned, one of them community engagement, trying to partner and collaborate with NGOs, private sector participation, looking for how you can advocate your government policies to support what you want, and starting with a lot of pilot programs, startup programs, it would help in that case.
Okay, Demi, thank you. Thanks a lot. Definitely, I'm just really very appreciating whatever the ideas or the suggestions you have just given it now. So I'm just take on because of the lack of time, or we can say the binding of the session. I just concluding with the 1 minute as a moderator here. I'm really, because after the conclusion from the last 60 minutes, I can say it is completely based on sustainable goals that we are just rotating, and how we can just use for the renewable resources in a better manner. We can say we should try to conserve it for the material resources, reduce energies, and use a proper optimized or channelized manner of using for the water usage, generate the less wastage, and more focus for reducing for the pollution, I can say. So it is a really very wonderful discussion, especially thanks to David, Romy, and Devi, and Karamjit. It is a very nice interaction to all of you. Okay, and I hope and this type of interactions definitely we can do with the bilateral for the different countries also. Yes.
Right.
Thanks a lot, and thank you
very much.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Definitely.
Thank you
Kamal.
very much.
And definitely
very
your
much,
question, we
everyone.
can connect it further.
Thank you very much.
To have a collaboration
Sure.
to work upon.
And definitely, my university is always be ready. And definitely, I will just keep in touch with the mail also.
Yeah.
And we will try our best for the further coordination.
Right.
Thanks a
We
lot.
will love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Okay.
And take care.
Thank you
Have a
very
good day.
much.
Good day. Yeah. Bye. Take care. Thanks a lot, Nidhi ma'am. And we should try to wind up the sessions. And it is really very wonderful. And because of lack of time, and sorry to say, we have just taken for exceed time for wind upping that particular session. Sorry to all. Thanks a lot. And we will definitely meet again. Thank you. Thanks a lot.